Hi, welcome to the Gentle Art Podcast with Dunn. Today we have the privilege of sitting with Jiu-Jitsu black belt and Karate Taekwondo black belt, Kim Tolve. Kim, welcome to the school.
Thank you, Shihan.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Shihan. It's great to be here.
You know, Friday karate is not that well attended. So I'm thinking about, maybe just going back to Friday night, Randori, maybe putting the MMA class in on Wednesday or some other slot. I don't know.
I know, like that Friday, for people, especially a lot of, the draw of jiu-jitsu and MMA is mostly younger men, right?
Yeah.
So for them to give up a Friday, like I feel like that's where you find some of the most devoted and motivated students.
Yeah.
Because it's a Friday night.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why it got moved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to motivate them. It certainly presents its own challenge these days.
It does. And it can't be only an external force. There's definitely an internal drive that has to get you there.
Yeah.
And personally, as I age, and it's sometimes to get that fire, but I've been with it for so long that I actually sometimes will have guilt if I can't get there, or if physically my body, because sometimes now at this age and stage I have to listen.
Yeah,
and so physically I'm like, okay, maybe I have to pump the brake. I was at class the other night, and I could tell I didn't have it in me for the second class.
Right.
And I had to graciously bow out, but I scratched the itch a little bit because Ro and I were working on the roll downstairs, the forward roll. So I got an extra 15, 20 minutes in that way, and it was at my pace, and I'm just learning to listen to those physical cues.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that internal motivation has to push you through, because we wouldn't be practicing as long as we're practicing if that motivation wasn't there. But
I think what you just said is spot on, and also that there are some other factors that we need to realize, and I think you said it is, and I tried to get this across for many years, that at some point the practice becomes much more about giving and helping others than it is just training, and I heard you say, you scratched the itch, or you got satisfied by taking a student downstairs and helping them on something that they weren't getting. And there's a lot of satisfaction in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Though that the Japanese, at some point, after fifth dan or sixth dan or 5th-degree, 6th-degree black belt, the rest are honorary. The rest are about contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's embedded in the kind of culture of Japanese martial arts that's what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. That's if you're still coming at the training like you're 25 years old and you're going to fight everyone and everything, you didn't learn anything.
Yeah, you definitely missed something.
You've missed it. So I really love that idea that you had. What does it mean to listen to your body more? Because I think that a lot of people, I know that I struggled with it for when I was in my 40s a lot. And that's when the injuries started to really stack up. And I think I didn't want to accept this next phase. I went into it kicking and screaming, mm-hmm. and I got punished for it. I punished myself, mm-hmm. really. But that's when the real injuries started, right in that stage between in my late 30s, early 40s. That's when they really started,
right.
Stacking up. So what does it mean to listen to your body? And then how do you kind of pay attention? What's the mental, process that you go, okay, now I gotta go. I'm gonna go home and come back tomorrow.
Right. For me, I think all of us that have stuck with the martial arts for as long as, to reach a black belt in jiu-jitsu or beyond, there's definitely like a switch, an off switch that we don't have that like
Right,
other people
right.
do have because,
It's fascinating, right?
I
It's true.
remember training right before my promotion to black belt, and I had messed up my hand. So my solution was to tape down all my fingers, and I literally had just 2 fingers to train with. And I was like, well, as long as I can hold on to something, I can train. And it worked, but I had to be mindful. And before I found that solution, I kept re-injuring myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to shut down those fingers. But at this age and stage, it's, knowing that energy level that we took for granted at 30, even 40, because I just turned 53. Knowing that energy level and that reserve that we took maybe for granted at a younger age is not there necessarily. So for me, it's just listening to those physical cues and even the energy level itself. I do feel like I have a very strong fighting spirit. I've been through some challenges in my lifetime that I think most people probably would have turned around, and I know we've had discussions about, am I that aging athlete that's hanging on too long?
Yeah.
But, you know, just recognizing those signals and saying, okay, if I can't get to class to train for myself, I really do enjoy coming in and either being a deshi or a partner to somebody.
For those of you who don't know what deshi is, it's like a helper.
Right.
A class helper. Yeah.
Right. And I really enjoy that. Like when I was recovering from my knee replacements, just being able to get on the mat, put on a gi, and maybe I wouldn't be able to demonstrate a technique or perform the technique myself, but to be able to articulate the technique and to be able to express to a student, you need your hand here for this purpose. That's, in a sense, my way of understanding, okay, I can't do this right now, but I can help in a different way. I can train in a different way.
Yeah, it seems so paradoxical. Like I think a lot of people that come into the martial arts can be very fragile. And so they get a little, a smaller injury, say a finger, issue, and they quit. And so like they're embedded in what you said, like there are ways to train intelligently around things. And you want to do that. You don't want to negate that. And then once you've done that, you have to kind of identify that certain things in this lifelong practice, you have to let go of, you have to transform them. They need to change. The satisfaction of, like, I tell this story all the time. Like, Mr. Vizio's kickboxing class was on like Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 a.m. in Secaucus, New Jersey. And in those days, I lived in Astoria. And so it was impossible for me to like gauge traffic. Like some days it would take me an hour, and other days it would take me 4 hours. Like I'd have to go across the 59th Street Bridge, cross town, into the Lincoln Tunnel during rush hour traffic, and then navigate through to Secaucus. And some days, on the days it took me 3 or 4 hours to get there, I'd be in the parking lot, and I didn't have the courage to go in with 15 minutes left of class. And I'd sit in the car crying. I would just be upset, pissed, disappointed, everything. And he would see me. He would be looking out the window for me, and he would come out and like knock on the window and laugh at me and go like, "This is your training, go home." And that would infuriate me. Like, what do you mean, sir? Like, what do you mean this is my training? Like, I didn't even suit up. I didn't put my gloves on, nothing. And now I understand that, like, that's part of the process. All of that disappointment, like going home with all of that disappointment, processing all of that, that's part of the martial arts training. And so he was showing me that, like, that beyond the classroom, all of it's our training. Being a black belt is about being, cool, like in difficult circumstances.
Right.
And so why did I bring that up is because at some point we have to navigate these waters. We have to be able to go like, okay, my training, like I'm going to put myself in the situation where I'm helping, where I'm explaining and reinforcing different ways of learning and different ways of the practice. And that's a great thing. That's a powerful thing. That's better than being at home.
Oh, absolutely.
Drinking a beer and like, just not engaging with the practice at all.
And, with jiu-jitsu especially, you're problem solving. And, when I was younger watching my parents, I almost missed the lesson my father was trying to give me. And I think it really came into focus when he passed away, because I had to deliver his eulogy. And I had heard someone, and I thought I learned it from a colleague, because she had said, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And I didn't realize that was the lesson my dad had been teaching me my whole life. So when he passed away and I had to deliver the eulogy, maybe I didn't have the right words to articulate that. And that's what my former colleague gave me, was this little
way to put it.
Right, this little quote.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the draw of jiu-jitsu is for me, as far as like trying to solve all of these problems, because we know how uncomfortable some of the positions are. But to kind of reverse engineer it and be, okay, you have a kimura.
Mm-hmm.
I know for you to finish what you have to do. So how can I make that more difficult for you and solve that problem? And then you in turn have to now try and solve the problem that I'm presenting. So I know people like to use the analogy of chess, but I think it's even a little bit more than that. Because
you don't get your arm broken.
Yeah,
no, I'm just
it's
playing,
true. Well, it makes me think of, I'm a big Star Wars fan. It makes me think of the game when they're on the Millennium Falcon and they come in and the character comes and smashes the thing down. Yeah, definitely you could have your arm broken, but I like the problem solving aspect of it, and to be able to either solve the problem physically if I'm training, or to try to solve the problem mentally if I'm assisting in some way. They're both very satisfying.
Kim, can I just poke around in there? Like, so what more specifically does his message boil down to, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem?
Yes.
Or is it more nuanced? What was he trying to kind of?
Well, I think in relationship aspects, right? If it could be a coworker, it could be a personal relationship. If there's something off, then what am I doing to make the situation better, as opposed to making it worse? Am I being overreactive? Am I being overly sensitive? And then again, that translates to the mat. Somebody
Brilliant.
I fall behind and I allow someone to get a high mount.
Right.
How do I now not make this problem worse for myself and try to make it better for myself? So,
beautiful transition right there. That's gorgeous.
Thank you. I thank my father for that. And I know when I was getting my blue belt, my dad was ill. And he came to the promotion and he saw me training with these guys that were bigger than me and stronger than me. And here I am, escaping the mount or putting on a submission. And he had said to me, my dad died of cancer. He had said to me that when he beat this disease, he was going to come train with me.
Oh, wow.
Which would have been an absolute dream. Unfortunately, we never got there. But for him to, I think I had told you this recently, my parents were very forward thinking. I grew up in the 70s, when I graduated high school in the early 80s. It wasn't necessarily a guarantee that you were going to go to college.
Right.
You get married and start a family. And they were all for me going to college, and playing sports. But the one thing that they would never sign me up for was the martial arts. So I had to wait on my own. So to have graduated high school in 1984, and then I started jujitsu. When did I start jujitsu? I think 2004. For them to come, oh no, it was 2007. But for that full circle moment where, for me, no, you can't do the martial arts. That's a guy's thing.
Yeah.
And then for my dad to say to me, I'm going to get on the mat with you when I beat this disease. It was like
full circle.
And
right?
it was like a form of acceptance and acknowledgement.
I'm sitting here thinking about, like, I know this is going to sound terrible, but like that, at this point, tens of thousands of people have come through those doors and through my experience in the martial arts. And I can still remember, and I was thinking about this when I was driving over, I can still remember the moment I saw you walking across the street to come into the dojo and inquire about martial arts lessons. I can see it like it was yesterday. And, you did mention this point about not being able to do martial arts, and how, like, we were, just to give everybody some color, like, we were at our annual Thanksgiving celebration for the schools, and it was at Mr. Sheena's judo school, our Bay Parkway school. And you had graduated from Bishop Kearney, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's across the street. And so, like, to kind of come full circle on that, like, you had said, like, you saw that school and you wanted to do martial arts, and then to kind of come full circle and being there. And I just think it's so amazing how we are intertwined in so many ways, and how, like, it's not exactly linear.
No.
But it does seem to work out in a way where we can understand it that way. So, like, why martial arts, Kim?
I think
why not just sports? What was the draw about martial arts?
I think I have a pretty extensive sports background. I played softball for over 40 years.
In college?
I got to play Division I and Division III. The martial arts dream was always alive in my head, but I didn't have the means. My parents said no, and I didn't have the means.
Right.
And then it was the end of my senior year of college. I actually got hit by a cab rollerblading, and I shattered my tibia. So I lost my final season of softball. And I was working as a waitress, trying to get a job after I graduated, and I was starting my master's. And
in sports?
My master's was in sports medicine, athletic training.
Uh-huh.
So here I am working as a waitress, and right across the street on a diagonal, Master Osun Chun, who is a Taekwondo Sabunim, she opened her dojang, and she would come in every day, and she would get a coffee, and she would say,
"Of course she would."
She would say, "You look like you should do them. You're athletic and you're young, and come to the dojang." And again, I was still recovering from this injury. I wasn't cleared to work out. I was on crutches for 3 months. I wasn't allowed to put my foot on the ground and put weight on my leg. But as soon as the doctor cleared me, the first thing I did, I was making my own money as a waitress, and I was paying my way through grad school. I would make little envelopes, put money here for this and put money there for that. I started to pay my tuition for Taekwondo. And, I at that time I was younger. I didn't understand the difference between the different styles of martial arts, but it was a wonderful introduction into.
What a great introduction.
Yeah. And I value and cherish my time there.
What's one thing that you got from her?
Oh my gosh.
What's 3 things you got from her?
The one thing, I was thinking about this recently. My bachelor's is in kinesiology biomechanics. My master's in sports medicine athletic training. And I still wasn't focused enough on what I was going to end up doing.
No wonder you sent me a video the other day of kinetic energy.
Yes.
I was talking about kinetic energy in the class, Walter. And then I get a video just because you brought it up. Here's this.
It was a cool one.
It was cool. It was great. It was right on.
But what it gave me, besides the self-confidence and the discipline, I was the kid that wouldn't make eye contact. I was the kid who would stutter when you spoke. I was the kid who was hiding to not do the public speaking and the presentations. So the confidence.
So she gave you confidence?
That martial arts practice gave me confidence.
What was her message? Meaning?
Well, you have to find your voice, with your Kia and being able to walk into a room. I remember my first karate class with you at the dojo on Avenue U. And I told you, I want to try karate. Give me a white belt. I just want to get back into something like that. And you mulled it over. And you had said to me, I will give you a white belt, no problem. But people are going to know that you're not a white belt. So, I'd like you to consider wearing your black belt. So now I walk in with this imposter syndrome that I'm, walking into this karate dojo with a Taekwondo black belt.
You do know they're the same style, correct?
I do.
During the Japanese occupation,
yes,
the Koreans learned Shotokan.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know the forms, right. So I'm like, oh man, these people are going to think I'm a big fraud. They've seen me do jujitsu, but now here I am kicking, punching. So I knew the physical techniques, but I was like, all of a sudden I hadn't ki'd in such a long time. And this Taekwondo ki'a is a little more drawn out, but I found this voice and I'm like, where is this coming from? But I know where it's coming from. It came from the decade of Taekwondo that I had done. And I wasn't ashamed of it. I was proud of it.
Yeah.
If I can't contribute to this class in knowing the forms or knowing how to help somebody learn a form, then I'm going to contribute by elevating the energy. I'm going to contribute I'm going to contribute by doing the best front kick that I can or side kick or.
Right.
So that confidence.
I think it's so interesting that while sports gives a person so much, it typically doesn't. I don't think. I never really played sports in school. Martial arts has been my path, but I don't think it takes the whole person into consideration. And I think that there are ways you can be athletically inclined and do very well and still hide. You're still not deal with a lot of the deficiencies that we have. And but I think in a good martial arts environment with a right teacher, the martial arts will go and kind of attack those problems.
No, it absolutely does.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty and I'm not one to, I kick myself because I'm of the generation of jujitsu practitioners. I'm, basically the first generation of Americans to do jujitsu. I didn't start in Torrance in '88, though I did start as soon as Kukuk moved. Kukuk was the first American black belt, for those of you who don't know, and he came from California. He came from Torrance and started teaching in New York. And I started with him right around, I think he was here about 5 or 6 months. And I made the mistake of kind of throwing out a lot of my karate training because I was hypnotized by jujitsu. And then I realized, what the fuck am I doing? And I really started to look at all of the ways in which karate training and being around the culture of it was so beneficial. And that's why we started Brooklyn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I wanted to kind of bring the martial art element back in. So the long-winded point here is that I think if you got a Taekwondo black belt, it's legit. If you get a Kung Fu black belt, it's legit. If you get a Tai Chi black belt, it's legit. There's certainly, this is another topic we can touch on, but there are certainly people out there that kind of hogwash it, if you will. but it's still like, if it's done well and done right, it's all great. It's all really very good and very important.
That was
there's no imposters.
One of the things like I know is with my Taekwondo experience, I knew I could get kicked and punched. I know how I would react to that. With the jiu-jitsu stuff, I didn't know what it was like to have somebody on top of me and trying to hold me down.
Right.
As I started to learn that, I was like, oh, wow, like this is a whole other aspect that, especially a woman, New York City. I mean, it's the best city in my opinion in the world, but I'm not going to most likely end up in a bar fight.
Right.
I'm most likely going to get shoved down to the ground and attacked, or someone's going to, try to do something nasty to me. So it was, I knew how I would react if someone punched me in the face. But this whole other thing that just evolved, that I think that's what I was trying to say before, where I didn't understand the lineage of the martial arts, if you will. Like you were saying, Japan occupying Korea.
Right.
I knew that there was a lot of overlap, but I didn't realize the kicking styles and the punching styles as opposed to the ground styles, or like Aikido was something that always fascinated me. And I think that came from watching the old Kung Fu movies, seeing the Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris movies, Jackie Chan. But to be able to then go and like all of a sudden I had, sumigaeshi, somebody's going over my head. And I'm like, I just did that.
That's right.
And there's that confidence again and that problem solving again.
Thank you for listening to the Gentle Art Podcast. Please share, rate, and review. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, please contact us at the GentleArtPodcast@gmail.com, or contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or thegentleartpodcast.com.